Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Madhusudan, and I welcome you all to the second lecture of economy in the N100 series. In this series, we have already completed the polity lectures, and now we are completing the economy lectures. In these lectures, I am going to cover the complete economy from mains perspective. That is, in all the themes that are expected to be asked in the mains paper, we are going to discuss in detail various dimensions that have been asked in the UPSC exam or that has the probability of being asked again in the UPSC exam. Okay, so before moving further, please confirm all of you that audio and video, everything is clear. And those of you who are watching this video, please like the video and share it with all your friends so that they could also enjoy the benefit of this mains oriented lectures. A lot many times we study economy, but most of the time our focus remains limited to the prelims related question because a lot of easy and conceptual questions are asked in prelims from economy. But mains is equally important. There are 8 questions that are asked in GS paper 3 from economy. In last class, we covered about the GDP, the economic growth related aspect. In today's class, I'm going to cover the inclusive growth. The growth that we have happened, that we are incurring, must be inclusive as well. Okay. So anyone who would like to contribute what is meant by inclusive growth? Please do reply. As I have told in the last class also that let's make these sessions interactive. Do not just be a mute spectator. Like it should not be listened like a Satyanarayan Bhagwan Katha. You should be an active participant in the class. You should reply to the questions that I ask. Then only your whatever learning that you will have will be permanent in your memory. When you reply, when your replies are uh, ascertained as right or wrong, then only it remains in your memory forever. Okay. So let me start with the fact, the very first thing, that is, what is inclusive growth? What do you mean by inclusive growth? So let's understand the meaning of the word. First thing, it is saying that there should be growth. Okay, inclusive growth has this aspect. There should be growth. And the second thing is that growth must be inclusive. Inclusive is derived from the word include. So if a growth is including everyone, that growth would be inclusive growth. And naturally, those who are already better off, those who are already developed, well off, they are definitely going to grow. So traditional theory, this is in context of, like earlier we had this trickle down effect. You must have studied about the 5-year plans, and in the first few 5-year plan we were believing on the trickle down effect, that if the growth will happen, it will naturally trickle down to the lower strata as well. From where will it trickle down? It will trickle down from the top strata to the bottom strata. Now it was seen that actually that was not happening. The growth was mostly arrested to the top strata as well. If like this is the pyramid, there are a lot many people at the bottom of the pyramid who are having relatively less income, and there is few people who are having more income. So the growth was traditionally arrested to this top of the pyramid as well. So in that context, the concept of inclusive growth has come, that the growth should benefit everyone. Everyone means to the bottom of the pyramid also. Everyone, including those who are at the bottom of the pyramid. Okay, so here is the definition of inclusive growth. It seeks to boost national wealth and well-being. or national income. So first thing is there should be growth. There cannot be inclusive growth without economic growth. So first, the GDP should grow, while at the same time reducing poverty, ensuring equity across generations, and preserving economic freedom. If you are not able to remember all these words, you can simply remember it, the growth that should benefit everyone. All strata of society should benefit from the growth that is called inclusive growth. Okay. Obviously, it should reduce poverty. It should ensure equity. Equity means like those people who are worse off, they should benefit more. So suppose in like GDP has doubled, we can say that the national income has doubled. It should result in those who are at the bottom of the pyramid, it may happen that their income has increased 4 times. Those who are here, their income has increased 3 times. Here, 2 times. Here, 1.5. Maybe their income has only grown by 0.5 times. I mean, obviously not 0.5 times. I mean, growth by say 25%, 1.25. So if such an arrangement is happening, this is called equity. And equity should be across the generations. Like, obviously, it will happen across generations. Like, as compared to previous generation, we are comparing this generation. Whether in this generation, those people are better off whose parents were not that well off, then only you are saying that you are growing. You will always compare yourself with the generation of your parents, that in the parents generation we were having these many goods and services. Now we are accessing more goods and services, so probably we are better off. Okay, there is this video you might have seen that a person says that my parents were not so well off. They were living in the rural areas. They were poor. Now I am relatively well off. So his friend asked that if your parents were not so well off, then they must not be having home. Then he said, no. I mean, in the rural area in my village, they had a big home, and there was also empty land on which we used to play. So now you must be having a bigger home. So now that you have shifted to the urban area, the size of your home has shrunk. You are living in a small flat where there is no empty land on which your children could play. So although, I mean, in terms of this, I mean, that video is showing that although we feel that we are better off, probably in terms of those basic necessities, we are not so better off. But yes, if this feeling of better off, I mean, obviously that is a meme, that is not a true scenario. Someone living in a good flat in urban area, say any metropolitan area, is definitely better off than someone who is living in an equally size building in a rural area. Because in urban areas, the rates of property are much higher. His income is definitely much more if he is able to afford the same size of flat. Okay. Now see, this stress on inclusive growth in India's economic journey, this stress was placed from 11th five-year plan. 11th five-year plan has an objective. Its objective was faster and more inclusive growth. So this five-year plan, for the first time, it's not that we were earlier not trying. I will tell you the indicators of inclusive growth, and there you can learn that those indicators were present always in our five-year plans. I mean, the five-year plans were a socialist in agenda. The target of poverty reduction was always there. Okay, poverty reduction is one of the key feature of inclusive growth. So it was always there. However, this plan made it a specific and explicit. There was explicit mention of faster and more inclusive growth as the objective. The 12th five-year plan added to this the sustainable development aspect. The 12th five-year plan also mentioned about in its objective as inclusive growth. From 12th five-year plan also mentioned some of the indicators of inclusive growth, like what kind of growth you are going to call, and this is how you are going to structure all your answers. If any question on inclusive growth is asked, you will structure in this fashion only. You will talk about these indicators. You will say, if the question is whether the growth is inclusive or not, you will talk in terms of these indicators that yes, the growth is inclusive. If there is a shortfall in these indicators, then also you will talk with respect to these indicators. So this is the structure that I'm going to give you. In this structure, you have to write, or I mean, you can frame all your answers. So what is going to be the structure? The first thing is that there has to be a lower incidence of poverty. There is no going back. I mean, it cannot be a scenario that we are growing and few section of our population is living in poverty and we are calling ourselves a developed nation. It is not a possibility. So first and foremost thing is that the incidence of poverty should reduce. Okay. Next is that obviously poverty reduction. How will poverty reduction happen? Through employment generation. I mean, people will have more income. It could be either wage employment or through some other livelihood opportunities, like you can have your own entrepreneurship, you can have your own small businesses. So either wage employment or self-employment, which I have written as livelihood opportunities. Then some basic amenities should be accessible to everyone. Okay, it is not enough to have money and do not have the safe drinking water, do not have the nutritious food. Okay, so the basic amenities like water, electricity, roads, sanitation, housing, these are the basic amenities that must be available to everyone. Okay, next is that the how health outcomes should also improve. Health and education, these are the two social indicators that should also improve for a growth to be called inclusive. Okay, and like the 12th five-year plan mentions that it is not only like education should not only in terms of the literacy rate, like education should be at all the level. Like first there's universal access of children to the school, then there should be access to higher education, then there should be improved standard of education as well. This is something that we have been failing till now. The standard, the quality of education, like Indian education has become U without Q syndrome. We have been able to provide universal, at least primary education, universal primary education. So we have achieved universalization without quality. The quality of education is very poor. And if you have to substantiate it, you will refer to ASER report. Annual Survey of Education report. ASER report often talks of that around 50% of our 5th grade student or 6th grade student, they are not able to read the second standard book. They are not able to do the basic arithmetic operations, multiplication, division, etc. So this reflects a very poor picture of our education quality. So the outcome, a standard of education is not good. Okay, and it also includes the skill development. This is something that we have talked yesterday also. A skill is something that we will keep on talking about it. And then in one particular day, I will also teach you specifically when we shall be covering about the manufacturing sector, a specific topic of skill development. But all the talks that we are doing in various topics, the benefit of skill, you must keep in mind. There, I will just summarize all the points in one slide. I need not teach you anything new. Okay. Then there another important aspect is inclusive growth should balance the inequality. If the inequality is more, it simply means that the growth is in not inclusive, the growth is exclusive. The opposite of inclusive is exclusive. Exclusive means certain sections are excluded from the growth. Now, when you are talking of the inequality, you will talk of regional inequality. Like, see, if we talk of the current India's economic growth, there are certain regions like Northwest India, Punjab, Haryana region, then the southern India states, especially the coastal regions. They are the pockets of prosperity in India. Whereas, like the Dadan plain, especially eastern India, the Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, these are the regions which are the regions of poverty, where uh, the development has not reached. So this regional inequality is also showing that there is lack of inclusive growth. Then there is rural urban inequality. Yesterday only we have discussed about this inequality. Inequality in income inequality. Yesterday I gave you some data also. That data was with respect to monthly per capita consumption expenditure. I hope you remember that. In terms of rural average and urban average, there was a gap of approximately 60% in terms of the expenditure that people are doing. If you are not able to recall the data, you must go back and revise. Every day you must do the revision. The same data I shall be using in different topics so that you are able to remember them easily. Okay, then there is inequality between on the basis of gender. In almost all the criterias, the women are not performing on par with men. There is also inequality on the basis of caste. We have started again saying that the monthly per capita consumption expenditure of scheduled tribe is less than scheduled caste, is less than the national average. In polity classes also we have seen the same thing. We have talked about the health outcome, we have talked about the education outcome, and in all the cases we have the consistent pattern that the outcome of scheduled tribe is less than scheduled caste, is less than the national average. Okay, so these are different types of inequality that are witnessed. And then the last aspect of inclusive growth is that it should be sustainable as well. Okay, there should be inclusivity across the generations. Okay, when I'm talking about the sustainable development, I am mentioning that the inclusivity should be across the generation. And we do a study. The definition of sustainable development is that we develop in such a way that we leave as much resource for the next generation as we have got from the previous generation. Whatever resources that we have got from the previous generation, if we are living the same amount for the next generation, the development is sustainable, because in this way the development can go on forever. Okay, so the inclusivity should be across the generation, and if it is across the generation, it has to be sustainable development. I will more specifically again discuss the relationship between inclusive growth and sustainable development. But see, these are the various features in terms of which indicators, in terms of which every answer of your inclusive growth should be based on. Simple structure I'm giving. You will talk about the poverty, employment, basic amenities, water, electricity, roads, sanitation, housing, significant health, education, different aspect of health and different aspect of education you can take, and then inequality and sustainable development. Depending upon the number of points, number of data points that you have, you should prepare the data points also for all these outcomes. A lot many data I shall be giving in today's class also, and as I have told you in the last class, you must maintain at the end of every topic a database where you will compile the data. Without data, any answer in economy is not going to be a Good answer. Good afternoon, Manoj. I guess you are a little late. If you have any doubt, you may ask now. Okay, let's move to the next topic. The next topic is obviously the government has been focusing, government is saying in the 5-year plan that we are doing inclusive growth. And if you look at these items, see, one item is poverty reduction. Poverty is goal. Okay. What is these are the social indicators. The rest of the items are called social expenditure. Okay, or other we call it as social services, health, education, and all these basic amenities. They are collectively called social services. So this year a question was asked that whether the public expenditure on social services has been growing or not, or has been in sync with the uh, a stated goal of inclusive growth or not. So again, we will see that whether our expenditure has been increasing or not, and whether expenditure on these items have been increasing or not, and then we will talk that whether we have achieved the stated goal or not. Let's see. Public expenditure on social services, how much is there? See, first and foremost thing is that allocation has increased to 7.8% of GDP. The total expenditure to social services, this which is also termed as social expenditure of the government, has increased to 7.8% of GDP. All the data on the screen are important. You may not be able to remember all of them today, but by the end of the course or by the time you write the paper in UPSC, you must memorize all these data. Okay, not much is going to change within a year. Okay, so even if you remember them once, you may not be required to update them frequently. Okay, first thing is that allocation earlier around like in 1990s, the allocation was around 5 to 6%. So approximately 2.5%. I mean, if we take the average, or 2 to 3% increment has happened. Obviously, Right to Education Act has come because of the COVID. Also, the health expenditure increased enormously. Various schemes of the government like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, MG Narega. Because of these, also the expenditure, social expenditure has increased. Next is education budget has increased to 2.7% of GDP. Okay, the health budget has increased from 0.9% of GDP in 2000 to 1.9% in 2024. The critical point has been the COVID-19 pandemic, during which the health budget increased enormously. Okay, and in absolute term also, even if you simply compare the recent time, last 5-6 years, the allocation has approximately doubled from 11.39 lakh crore to 23 lakh crore. Even if you simply remember similar 1122, something of that, that would also be sufficient. If you are not able to remember it to the last, I mean to the decimal point, that is also good. Okay, simply doubled from approximately 11 lakh crore to 23 lakh crore is also going to be sufficient. In terms of social infrastructure, 11.7 crore toilets have been made under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, 3.5 crore Pakka houses have been made. We are simply like PM Awas Yojana, both including urban and rural areas. Okay, then 11.7 crore households have been provided tap water. Incidentally, coincidentally, these two numbers are same. It is definitely easy for you to remember. So 11 is the key number here. You can simply, if 11 crore also, if you are able to remember, that will also do. So not necessary that all the data has to be memorized exactly to the 2 decimal points. Even if you are able to recall in the absolute number, that is also going to be sufficient. Okay, so this is the allocation that government is doing. Definitely the allocation has increased towards social services. What is the outcome? The outcome is also good. Poverty rate has fallen from 36% in 1993 to 11% in 2023. This is also the data which is useful when you do the comparison of poverty alleviation after LPG reforms. The poverty has almost been reduced to one third level after LPG reforms, or more than one third level. Next, similarly, the health outcome has also been positive. The maternal mortality I hope I am now visible as well as audible. Am I? Please confirm. Okay, there was some audio related problem. I hope it is solved now. Just confirm. Okay, I am audible, I guess. So let me repeat what I have just taught, that after LPG reforms, again there has been reduction in poverty, and this reduction in poverty went faster than the reduction in poverty that was witnessed before that. Okay, before that, the growth we were calling, before LPG reforms period, we were calling it as Hindu rate of growth. Do you know why this was called Hindu rate of growth? A lot many people will say that because India has a majority population of Hindus, that's why India's growth rate was termed Hindu rate of growth. Well, this is half truth, because even today India's population is majority Hindu, but today's growth rate is not called as Hindu rate of growth. So definitely that is not complete picture. Actually, whatever the growth rate India was expecting post independence, it was not achieved. Our growth rate was very slow, and so it was a term coined by not economist, rather the sociologist, who has given the socialistic point of explanation for why India was not able to achieve faster growth rate. And they said that the reason is the Hinduism belief in karma and bhagya. We believe in karma and bhagya, that if it is not written in our destiny, we will not achieve it. Like a lot many of you, if you fail in your first, second, third attempt in UPSC, you tend a lot. Your parents might have a start saying that it's not in your destiny. Do not do not take burden of it. If it's written in your luck, in your destiny, it will happen. If it is not written, it will not happen, irrespective of the hard work that you do. Okay, so the socialistic point of view explained this slow growth rate using this theory of karma and bhagya, that because of this, the growth rate has been mediocre, has been slow, because the Indian population is very much satisfied. It is not impatient enough, it is not working hard enough so that we could achieve a high rate of growth. This is the same thing that when like Infosys chairman has been saying recently, he's advocating that we should have the 70-hour week. So if you have to grow, the population has to work hard, and if you work hard, then only the growth will happen. So that was the term, that was the reason why this Hindu rate of growth, obviously it was countered. It was considered that probably the fault was not with the socialistic attitude of the people, rather the economic policies of the government, which was very much towards closed economy. Now let's come back to this factor. The another question that is often asked, whether capitalism can lead to inclusive growth or not. To that question also you have to answer that, see, again in this period 1990s onwards, we are more towards the capitalist form of economy, what we are calling it as neoliberal economy, where the private sector is now expected to lead the economic development. And in this reason, again we have had poverty reduction. Again we have seen that the outcome of health outcome has improved a lot. In terms of the maternal mortality rate, it is per lakh live births. The education outcome, if you see, the gross enrollment ratio in higher education, it has increased from 10% to 27%. So these are the outcomes which show that we are having in recent times the inclusive growth. Okay, then again, if you have to say that our target in all the cases, see, if we were here, we are trying to reach here, invariably we would be somewhere here. So now till this time I have talked about this journey, that yes, we have had some amount of inclusive development, but yes, we are a little short of our target. Okay, so what we will compare? Then we will compare the whether allocation, like education, the new education policy. Our own policy says that our target should be 6% of GDP. The expenditure on education should be 6% of GDP. We are still stuck at 2.7% of. In terms of health, the health policy says that we should spend 2.5% of GDP. But as of now, we are spending only 1.9%, that too after pandemic. Before pandemic, this was also hovering around 1.3% or so. And before that, till 2000, it was only 0.9% of GDP. So definitely, we are a little short of our own target that we have set up. Okay, like in terms of, you can talk about the infant mortality ratio as well. We had a target that by 2015 itself, we would achieve this infant mortality rate of 25. Okay, but we have not been able to achieve that target even 10 years after 2015. Okay, so these are the data which shows that we have something to achieve. You can quote the ESSA report that I have just talked to show that the quality of education is not appropriate. You can quote the inequality status that I have given you, that there is a still inequality, and so there is lacuna in terms of inclusive growth as well. Is it clear? If you have any doubt, you may ask. So if the question is again, question may be changed, that whether India's growth is inclusive. I have just given you the answer. You will talk about the various government expenditure for health, education, and all those like poverty, access to various services, wage employment. So that framework that I have given, go by that framework. First tell what are the things that we have achieved, and then tell what are the things that are yet to be achieved, what are the things that we have not achieved, because of which our growth is inclusive, but it is not perfectly inclusive. There is an element of exclusiveness in our growth still there. Okay. Now you should also, I would advise you that in these answers you should also mention about various schemes. For example, when we talk of employment generation, you must mention about MC Narega, NRLM, NULM, National Rural Livelihood Mission, National Urban Livelihood Mission. Next, we would talk about the access to various basic necessities like National Food Security Mission. Sorry, National Food Security Act was there, and under through PDS we are providing subsidized food grain. Then we have Jal Jeevan Mission. We have Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. We have PM Awas Yojana. We have PM Kisan scheme. So a lot many schemes, their target and achievement also you should memorize. We usually memorize schemes for prelims, but the same schemes target and achievement is also useful in mains exam. Here in mains also you should write these schemes. Next, health and education, like Ayushman Bharat. Is something that is there, like recently the Prime Minister has increased the or rather has made Ayushman Bharat available to all these citizens above 70 years of age. So this is another good step towards making health more accessible. Then With respect to education, there are various schemes like Right to Education Act is there. There is Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is there. Okay. Then if we have to address the regional inequality, like we have already discussed in the polity itself, that the finance commission allocation is based on the allocation of resources or tax revenue from center to a state by finance commission, takes the equity model, adopts the equity model. It is based on the highest weightage is given to the income distance approach. So the state with less per capita income gets more resources from the central government as compared to the states with large per capita income. So because of these efforts, we can say you can say that there is a progressive taxation regime. Our income tax is progressive, even our GST is progressive. Then to address the gender inequality, we have Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. So through all these schemes, we are trying to make sure that India has the inclusive growth. Yes, Swachh Bharat scheme is also there. Jan Dhan Yojana is also there. Those are the schemes also that you can mention. Digital India mission. So all the things that you have to, in these answers, what you have to do is, first of all, you have to mentally decide how much a space I have got for which part. So if there are 3 parts, you have 3 pages, decide that 1 page I will write towards a scheme. And one more thing is that do not just write the name of the scheme. Do write 1 line or 2 line about the target if you remember. Let's see what it is trying. If you do not remember the target, it may be possible that for all the schemes you do not remember the targets. Then mentions about its objective, like uh, what is the objective of Jan Dhan scheme? To open the bank account of all the adult citizens of our country. Okay, so similarly, either objective or target you must mention. So 1 or 2 line you must mention about all these schemes. Just do not mention the names of the scheme. Clear? Keep telling me yes sir, no sir, etc. Okay, it helps me gauging that I am still online, I have not gone offline. Good. Now let's move to the next aspect, that is a rather very related aspect when we talk of the inclusive growth. The one aspect that is lack of, or rather more of, inequality is another problem that is coming. Sometimes in terms, the question is also asked in terms of inequality. Again, the dimensions are going to be the same. So what we call as inequality. Inequality is unequal distribution of resources, opportunities, or outcomes among individuals or group within a society. I have already talked about the various groups about which you will discuss, or in context of which you will be discussing about any question on inequality. Okay, but I will give you some data. Some data like, are you able to recall any data that I have just given you today? about inequality. There are various dimensions. Inequality, I have talked that you have to talk about income inequality. You have to talk about regional inequality, income inequality, gender-based inequality, caste-based inequality. These are the different dimensions of inequality that we have to talk. Like with respect to income inequality, I have given like expenditure related data I have given you in the last class. The ratio of monthly per capita expenditure of the top 5% to that of bottom 5% is 8 in rural areas and 10 in urban areas, based on which I have said that in rural areas the inequality is less, I mean relatively less. As such, we cannot say that there is lack of inequality, but relatively less as compared to urban areas. Then we have also talked about rural urban divide yesterday. So there is inequality between rural areas and urban areas as well. There is one more important report. I mean, any answer on inequality is incomplete unless you talk of the Oxfam report. Okay. So this Oxfam India report, it says that top 1% in India, they have 23% of total income, and they have 40% of total wealth. So when we talk of the income, when we make the income cumulative analysis, the top 1% people with respect to the income, they are cornering 23% of the total income, and the top 1% of those who are having in terms of the wealth, they are having 40% of the total wealth. So this is definitely reflecting the 1% people having 40% of the wealth. This is reflecting the inequality. In fact, the Oxfam report also talks that between 2012 and 2021, say if your preparation duration increases, maybe if you are preparing till 2030, then various Oxfam report will come in between and you will have to regularly update your data. This is based on the latest Oxfam report. So that's why I always say that try to get out of this cycle as soon as possible. Otherwise, you have to do the same hard work again and again every year. So between 2012 and 2021, whatever the wealth is generated, 40% of that wealth has gone to 1% of population. Again, this is corroborating the same thing, that 40% of the population having that. So in even the recent time, the same phenomena is being followed. And it is also saying that the bottom 50% has got only 3% wealth. So there is a saying in our region, the heartland, we say that Adha mein Narayana, Adha mein Gharayana. So the god Narayan will get the half of the amount, and the rest half would be shared with all the people around. The same thing is happening. The bottom 50% is not getting the half of the due. Rather, only the top 1% is getting around 40%. And the bottom 50% population cumulatively is only having 3% of the total wealth that is generated in our country. Okay, so these data clearly reflects the fact that there is inequality in our country. You can give data about scheduled caste here to show that there is a caste based inequality. You can give data about rural and urban monthly per capita expenditure data. I have given you data about the gender based inequality, various data. You have data for the education discrepancy between men and women. uh, so you can talk about all these data. You can talk about the different region, the prosperous region, like the areas which were positively affected by the green revolution. They were the more prosperous. The areas like eastern India that did not get the green revolution, they are the impoverished areas. So you can talk, you must give data to or example to prove your point that there is inequality in our country. Now the question is, what are the causes of inequality? And it is very obvious. Whatever the causes are, like one of the causes, there is poverty. So poverty is inequality. There are historical discrimination reason against SC, ST, or even like the historical reason discrimination is the reason for caste-based inequality. And another big reason for sustained inequality is huge informal sector. In fact, as of now, 90% of jobs are informal in nature. Now see, this data you will get about various different format. Like SBI report is saying that informal sector has reduced. So now SBI is simply counting that every business that is taking online payment is now in the formal sector. Now everyone has started taking online payment through the QR code, but we cannot say that everyone has got formal employment. Okay, so if you simply talk about those employment where people are having social security net, in terms of that definition, I'm saying that 90% of the jobs are informal in nature. There is no social security available to the people who are working in the jobs. Even in formal sector, there are a lot of contractual jobs these days, which are informal in nature. Okay, and these are very there is also a statistic to say that those people who are working in informal sector, they are paid less as compared to those who work in the formal sector. Okay, so in formal sector, jobs are also less. That's why all of you are willing to work in the formal sector. You are preparing hard so that you could join the government services. All the government jobs are in the formal sector. You even now the government is also protecting the pension again. So you will be getting pensions. There are health benefit, medical benefit, and so on. Your even salary is also protected. It is indexed to the salary. So you are not bothered about inflation either if you get the government job. And then there is regional disparity. I mean, one of the reasons is green revolution. Green revolution has not affected all the region equally. Economic liberalization, this has also led to, like recent Oxfam report is saying, this has led to jobless growth. There has been high economic growth, but the jobs have not been created. Again, jobless growth does not mean that no new job has been created. Obviously, I have got employment after LPG reforms only. And so are a lot many people every year getting recruited to the IAS, PCS, etc. So jobless does not mean that there is no job. When we say jobless growth, what we mean, I will always also be discussing jobless growth separately in the chapter of employment, but I'm just giving you a glimpse that jobless growth means that the growth was expected to create more employment. That has not happened at the pace at which it was expected. Okay, the growth in like which we call as employment elasticity, that if you are growing by 10%, it was expected that employment should also grow by at least 5%. But instead, employment has only grown by around 1% to 2%. This is called jobless growth. It's not that there has not been any creation of job. Okay. Then education and healthcare, we have discussed a lot. That obviously India's healthcare outcome is very poor, education is very poor. The public health facilities, like one of the data that you can give for healthcare is out of pocket expenditure. It is approximately 75%. So 75% of the expenditure on health is out of my own pocket in India. Then gender inequality, we have discussed urban rural divide, land ownership. This was obviously a huge problem in our country. There are a very few people, they are having a lot of land, and there are a huge mass which is landless. Around 80% of the farmers are a small and marginal farmer. Well, the government did try to arrest this. The government is running a lot of schemes, but still we did not get the success. Why? Because a lot many people want to be bureaucrat to get a lot of black money. Corruption is one of the big reasons why most of our poverty alleviation programs have failed. Okay, and then our labor laws, they are also responsible. They do not protect the informal sector, the employee informal sector, they only protect the formal sector. And in fact, they are also held responsible for more informalization. A lot of businesses in India prefer to stay small to avoid the labor laws regulations. They do not grow beyond a size of say 200, because after having more than 200 employees, a lot many labor laws will kick in. So these are the causes of inequality that you have to talk about. There is another World Bank data which says that there is gender pay gap of 24% in India. So for the same work, the wages paid to women are 24% less than the wages paid to men, as per the World Bank report. You can also add various other factors, like societal factor is also responsible. This gender inequality or even caste inequality are bred by the society as well. So I hope you would be able to answer any question with a lot of facts and data that is asked on inclusive growth and inequality. Would you be able to answer it? Please answer yes or no. Do you have the confidence that you would be able to write a one-page answer with a specific point and data? It's not important just to write the answer. In GS3, a lot many people get less marks. And the reason for less marks is that they do not back their points with facts, data. Would you be able to write answers? If yes, please write yes. If no, then also mention no. Is the voice clear or you are getting any kind of noise? Please mention clear if it is clear. Next is there is another dimension that is asked with respect to inclusive growth is the relationship between inclusive growth and sustainable development. See, as such, the way we have defined inclusive growth, one of the element of inclusive growth was that it should be sustainable. So, I mean, if any question is asked this type, inclusive growth and sustainable development, you will talk from two dimensions. First, how inclusive growth will lead to sustainable development. And second, you will talk how sustainable development will lead to inclusive growth. And obviously, you do not have to go against it. This is something which is a complete truth. Inclusive growth leads to sustainable development and sustainable development leads to inclusive growth. Okay, there is no doubt in it at all. But we need to have some understanding of sustainable development to give a right answer or complete answer of this type of question. And for this, you need to understand the sustainable development is not only about environment, it is about 3P: people, planet, and profit. See, sustainable development also first includes economic development. Economic profit should be there. If there is no development, we cannot call it sustainable development. So first there has to be development. Do not have any misconception that you have to only worry about environment. First develop, then think that how you can develop by without damaging the environment. Okay, like Shahrukh Khan says na that you should give philosophical statement. You should talk about philosophy, but first become rich, then talk about philosophy. Similarly, first get developed. First, there should be economic development. Then, sustainable development says that this development should be considering the planet as well. The environmental impact should also be minimized. And then, sustainable development is not only about environment, it's also about people, it's also about society. What do you mean by this people and society? It simply means that people should benefit from this development. If people are not benefiting, we cannot call this development as sustainable development. Okay, but before that, please write down the definition of sustainable development as well. Please note down what is the definition of sustainable development. It is the development that meets the need of the present. The development that meets the need of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation, to meet their needs. The development which can be sustained over generations, that is sustainable development, where the present generation is able to meet its needs without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their needs. For example, if we are using a lot of non-renewable energy sources, ultimately these non-renewable energy sources are going to be over. We will exhaust, and the future generation will not have these resources to consume, so their ability to meet their energy needs is compromised. But if for future generation we are developing the renewable energy technologies, they are able going to meet their energy needs as well. Okay. Similarly, if the fruits of development are distributed across different what to say section of society, then this people or social needs are taken care of. So this includes that sustainable development should reduce inequality. People should be provided health, education, and other basic needs, basic amenities like drinking water, roads, etc. So from this, it is very much clear that if we go for inclusive growth, we are automatically going for sustainable development. All the elements of inclusive growth, that reduction of poverty, health, education, basic amenities, employment, they are inherently part of sustainable development itself. But obviously, the question setter expects you to answer this aspect as well, that when we are focusing on environment, then also implicitly we are catering to inclusive growth. The second aspect of this question is that sustainable development will also leads to inclusive growth. How? That first of all, we have long-term perspective in sustainable development. When you are having the long-term perspective, you are invariably talking of intergenerational equity. Intergenerational equity means equity between two generations, and intergenerational equity is part of inclusive growth. The sustainable development talks of equitable environmental benefits, means the natural resources, the benefit from natural resources should be distributed across the different spectrum of society. This is inclusive growth. It talks of creation of green jobs. Who will benefit more from the green jobs? This is like creation of employment, and employment creation is part of inclusive growth because it will benefit to those who are in the marginalized section of society. It will benefit those who are marginalized section of society. Then it will also create avenues for entrepreneurship and innovation because new jobs are to be created. It creates opportunity for all. When there is equal opportunity for all, this is inclusive growth. And another thing, like this is something in polity also we have studied, that Supreme Court has given right against climate change as a fundamental right. And the logic given by Supreme Court was that when climate change happens, it adversely impacts those who are relatively poor, who are marginalized. So it violates the right to equality. If you understand the same logic disproportionately, that if we are able to avoid climate change, we are going to provide equality. We are going to provide inclusive growth. Why? Because the marginalized section would have been affected more, that is avoided. So since marginalized section bears the brunt of environmental degradation more, avoiding environmental degradation is definitely a kind of inclusive growth, inclusive development. And then invariably the various efforts that we are going to take will involve community participation. So it will lead to, when we are going to have community based conservation, it will also empower the community. And community empowerment is part of inclusive growth. Community empowerment is inclusive growth. Through these points, you can substantiate from both the sides that inclusive growth will lead to sustainable development and sustainable development will lead to inclusive growth. Both will go hand in hand. If we do not have one, we will definitely not have the another. Is it clear? And if you have to give some example, you can give example of some government schemes like MG Narega. MG Narega targets both inclusive growth as well as sustainable development. How? Because MG Narega has, obviously it will leads to employment generation. It will lead to meeting of basic needs of the people. You create rural infrastructure. The activities which are eligible, it includes soil conservation measures, water conservation measures. So a lot of environment protection related measures are eligible activity under MG Narega. So these are the schemes which targets both inclusive development and sustainable development. South Korea has also started a New Deal program. One New Deal was another which was there during Great Depression in 1930s in USA, but South Korea has started a New Deal program to address sustainable development as well as inclusive. Okay, and you can also say that our 5-year plan, the last 5-year plan, 12th 5-year plan, had focus on both sustainable development and inclusive growth, and it only underlines the fact that both has to go hand in hand. You cannot have one without another. Okay. Now the next thing that is related to inclusive development is that we are in recent time talking about a concept called middle income trap. Have you heard of it? A lot many people are discussing that now probably India is getting trapped in middle income. Okay, economic survey has also talked about it a few years ago. And this is also in the context that the government has set a target that India will be a developed economy. We will be a developed country. Developed nation, Viksit Bharat by 2047. So when there would be 100 years of independence, at that point of time, India would be a developed nation. See, I want to trust on these slogans. Obviously, we all want to be a developed country. We want to live in a developed nation. And to live in a developed country, we do not want to leave our motherland. We do not want to migrate to another developed country like Canada. Canada people are also not welcoming us. But you know, in my childhood, we used to listen, or like even you must have listened to it as well, that by 2020 we were going to be developed country. 2020 came, we still remained in middle. Earlier, like in my childhood, before 2007, we were in the low income group. So in 2007, we migrated from low income to middle income. And then, since then, we are there in middle income. So first and foremost thing is that what categorizes a nation as a developed nation? And there are various different criteria. Okay. So one of the criteria, like Human Development Index is one of the criteria. There also the countries are categorized in developed country, not so developed country, poor country. What do you say? The terminologies that have been used there are different. The terminologies that I will be using here, like since we are talking of the income, is the terminologies used by World Bank. World Bank categorizes countries based on per capita income. On the basis of per capita income, the World Bank categorizes economies into high income, middle income, and low income. Okay, and its threshold for classification of a country as high income economy is $14,000. So if per capita income, per capita yearly income, yearly per capita income of a country is more than $14,000, that country is called as high income country as of now, as of today. That is the threshold being used by World Bank. Would you like to guess what is the per capita income of India? Anyone? In terms of dollar? India is currently having, India's per capita income is currently $2,400. So see, from $2,400 we have to achieve $14,000. And merely GDP growth is not going to be enough. Because see, your GDP will grow, your population will also grow. We are going to be, or we are already the most populous nation of the world. So the per capita GDP will not grow at the same rate. Like GDP is expected to grow 7.2% this year, but per capita GDP will not grow 7.2% first thing. And then our rupee also keeps on depreciating. So that will also have a negative effect. If our rupee is also depreciating by few percentage point, then our per capita GDP in dollars will not increase at that rate. So a lot many economists are saying that this is a very ambitious target. Like the government has set a target, that the target of government is that by 2047 our per capita GDP would be $19,000. So by 2047 our per capita GDP would be $19,000, and we would be classify ourselves as developed country. Now those naysayers who are saying that this is not possible, their simple calculation they are doing. Let's see, if you have to reach from here to here, $2,400 to $19,000, you got to be growing consistently at 8% and above, or maybe at 10% or more in nominal terms. That kind of sustained growth, mathematically, simply they are saying that mathematically India does not have a history of having that kind of sustained growth for such a long period of time. First problem is this. Okay, but the next thing is that you have to achieve that growth in nominal terms. The 7.2% growth rate that we are talking is in real terms. When we are adjusting for inflation, this is also around 4-5% or so. Okay, so if you add, probably we are having double digit growth. So mathematically, it is not completely out of bounds. Okay, first thing. Second thing is that if we look at the global arena, all the countries in the recent time, those who have been able to migrate themselves from middle income to high income economy, they are a small economy. The larger economies, the big countries, they have not succeeded in migrating from middle income to higher income. And the best example of middle income trap is Brazil. Where India is today, Brazil was there in early 2000 itself. it had what do you say? It has found a lot of natural resources, petroleum resources, etc. It was a huge economy. It has got demographic dividend at that point of time. It was growing at a fast pace, but then it has got stuck. As of now, its income has got, per capita income has stuck at around $10,000, and it is not growing anymore. The per capita income of Brazil is still more than us, but it is not able to grow from here and cross this threshold of $14,000. So that's why a lot many people are saying that probably we would also get stuck. But then the qualitative analysis also you need to understand. This is like mathematics. Theoretically, we are talking that we will grow 8%, then we will achieve it. It's simply like saying that if you have to say climb on the Everest, you have to simply every day climb 100 meters. You would be able to climb on Everest, but it's not like that. Initially, you might be able to climb even 200 meters in a day, but later on, as the height increases, the problems start growing. So in this context, the qualitative analysis, we need to understand why people are saying that we would be stuck in middle income trap. Why people are saying that, see, India's growth is not as inclusive as it should have been. So when the growth is inclusive, what kind of growth you call as inclusive growth? Like when it is benefiting everyone. In other words, if you say that the growth is led by, listen to me carefully, when the growth is led by all sections of the society, poor and rich alike, that growth is inclusive growth. India has not been having that. And this growing inequality is the reason for Brazil and other bigger economy that have got stuck in middle income trap. And India is also witnessing the same growing inequality about which I have just discussed about. Let's dig deeper. When we are saying growing inequality, what is happening? As of now, what is happening? The growth that we are witnessing is mostly led by upper class and upper middle class. The most of the items whose consumption is growing are the items consumed by this a small group. This is obviously not a majority. This a small group is consuming a lot of, what do you say, a lot of electronics item, AC, fridge, TV, smartphones, all the electronics items, their consumption has increased massively. A lot of service sector related consumption that has also grown in recent times, like tourism related, aviation sector consumption, they are growing. The travel through air conditioning coaches, that has increased, and these are consumed by upper middle class and upper class, which is a small minority. And this consumption will will stagnate after a point of time, because these are the durable goods. Durable goods would be consumed by a particular small minority. Small minority cannot lead the consumption forever. It will stagnate after a point of time. In contrast, if our growth is led by those goods and services which are consumed by masses, in that case, the growth would be sustained. It would be sustained for a longer period of time. What are those goods and commodities which are consumed by the masses? Those goods and services like health, education, roti, kapda, makan, like food processing industry, the textile industry, the housing sector, affordable housing. So real estate prices are going high. Not everyone is able to afford real estate. A lot of buildings are being made, but those buildings are those only which are owned by upper class and upper middle class. The poor people, they are not able to create more and more of new affordable housing for themselves. The lower middle class or the lower class, it is not fueling this real estate boom. So this is the apprehension that since our consumption is led by this small minority of upper class and upper middle class, this will stagnate after a point of time. It is not sustainable. Now, what is the way forward? The economists are also suggesting that probably we should focus on making the essentials affordable. The essential items, if they are produced in India and if they are affordable, if their consumption increases at a fast pace, probably our growth would be sustainable. And we should make effort for reducing inequality. If inequality is not reducing, that lower, those who are at the bottom of the pyramid, they will not be able to, their purchasing power will not increase. If their purchasing power is not increasing, demand is going to stagnate at a point of time, and after that stagnation, we are not going to be a developed country. Okay. Next is, the another suggestion is that we should increase production in areas where wages are cheaper. Currently, what is happening, especially let's take the example of textile. India is a country with highest number of poor people. Despite that, the textile sector in Vietnam, the textile sector in Bangladesh is more competitive than Indian textile. Why? Because wages in India are higher than wages in Bangladesh. How come it is possible? When we have the largest number of poor people, how can any other country have cheaper wages than India? It is possible because textile is not being produced in India in the regions where poor are living. We are producing textile in Gujarat, in Tamil Nadu. These are the regions where wages are higher. Since wages are higher, our textile industry is paying higher wages. So why not produce textile and other goods, other like food processing industries? Why don't increase production of apparels, textile, etc. in areas where wages are cheaper? In areas like Eastern India, Bihar, UP. If we boost production in these regions, again, our export would also be competitive. It will increase our export, it will reduce our import, and then these goods would reduce inequality. It would also increase the purchasing power of masses, and when the purchasing power of masses are increased, it will increase the demand, and this virtuous cycle will take India ahead in the zone of high income economy. So that's the idea, that we must go for inclusive growth. Only inclusive growth can take India to the developed economic club. Otherwise, we will be in this middle income trap forever. Is it clear? Have you understood this concept? If any doubt, please let me know. One more thing, that one advice that economists are giving, that when we are focusing on making essential affordable, we should not use subsidies, not with the help of subsidies. See, when you are making something affordable with the help of subsidies, as such, you are not, again, you are not making it sustainable, because subsidies cannot be there forever. Subsidies cannot make the good accessible for masses. Subsidies can only be granted to a few people. It can make the goods affordable for some time. So you should focus on technological advancement. You should focus on shifting production to areas which have low wages. These are the things that should be done for reducing the cost of production and making things affordable. You should improve your, you should reduce corruption. You should bring about the governance reform. When we undertake governance reforms, reduce corruption, then we reduce the cost of production, then we make things affordable for everyone, then the demand increases, production increases. This virtuous cycle will take India to a high income club. Next aspect I will very quickly take you through this is financial inclusion. What do you call financial inclusion? So it is something which is a buzzword. We have been listening about it a lot, and like this is although this is related to banking, but since in banking monetary policy we talk about the inflation also, I have decided to teach along with inclusive growth, because the purpose of financial inclusion is also to bring about inclusive growth. So it's the definition of financial inclusion. It refers to the accessibility and availability of financial services to all individuals and businesses, regardless of their economic or social status. So when financial services is available to everyone, this is financial inclusion. We also talk about another term, that is digital inclusion. So when digital products are available to everyone, irrespective of their income or irrespective of their social status, that is digital inclusion. Okay. And what kind of services that we are talking of? We are not merely talking of having a bank account. Obviously, bank account is one way, and bank account invariably lead to savings. Okay, when you open the bank account, you can do saving, you can get some interest, or you can also have FD, etc., to get more of the interest payment. But then it is a bit more than that. Okay, it also talks of remittances and payments. Obviously, you will have bank account. In bank account, you will receive payment from your friends, family, etc. Those people like migrant laborer who are working in some other place, their family is their family member are living at some other place, they can give remittances and payments. Then they should be able to access affordable credit as well. Affordable credit is important. Credit was always there, but those money lenders were charging a serious rate of interest. They were charging around 48%, 3% monthly, 4% monthly. So if that is definitely not affordable, that takes people into debt trap. Next, it's not only that you get the loan, also have insurance. Financial inclusion is complete when you have insurance product and when you are also getting financial knowledge, which I have written here as financial advice. So when there is financial awareness, financial knowledge, so first bank account, then you will do saving, then you will do remittances, then you should be able to take credit. After taking credit, you should also be able to have insurance that gives you financial security. And then knowledge. Obviously, you cannot have this insurance, etc., without having the knowledge. But these days, like everyone is investing in India, whether you know about option or not, everyone is engaged in optional trading, and many people are losing a lot of money. If any one of you is engaged in optional trading, I would advise you strictly against it. Those who are still preparing, they should not engage in optional trading. Now see, as some of you have already told me that government of India has also doing something. or other a lot many things that the government of India has been doing. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is there. So because of which we have achieved a good amount of financial inclusion. And see the steps, if I have to take that, what are the steps that government of India has taken? First is PM Jan Dhan Yojana. This is the biggest step that has been taken. Along with PM Jan Dhan Yojana, there were two insurance products also which were launched. One was PM Suraksha Bima Yojana. Another was Prime Minister Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. Okay, one was accidental insurance, another was providing life insurance. Okay, so these are the insurance product. This is saving account product, opening of the bank account. We have also talked about credit. For credit also, like schemes like PM Mudra is there, Mudra Yojana is there. So these schemes are definitely, apart from this, like even the digital products that have been launched, UPI and RuPay card, they have also contributed a lot towards financial inclusion. And then the government of like various banks, RBI is giving a lot of advertisement, etc. Financial awareness is also being spread by RBI, NABARD, and even commercial banks. So all these, for all those different aspects, government have one initiative or another, and because of which we have lot of good achievement in financial inclusion as well. 14.7 bank branches per 1 lakh adults in India. Okay, and this is higher than Germany, China, and South Africa. Germany, China, and South Africa. So usually everywhere we compare with the BRICS economies. So even with BRICS economies, the number of bank branches per 1 lakh adults is higher in India, despite having large population. So in this regard, in the banking sector, we are doing a pretty good job. Okay, even 50 crore plus Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana account have been opened, and this is also leading to inclusive growth because 55% of the accounts are held by women. The next aspect which is asked is, what are the benefits of financial inclusion? Why should we have the bank account of everyone? Now again, you have to think from the same perspective, that if someone is going to have the bank account, if someone is going to have a bank account, what will he do? He will do some saving. What's the benefit of saving? Like one direct benefit is for the same person, that he will get interest income. So his income is growing. This is like obvious benefit is there. Your income is increasing. Yes. The second benefit is that you are saving the money. Ultimately, the bank will lend it to someone else. So it will increase lending. So if it has led to more of a loan creation for someone else, what that someone will do? Either that someone will do more consumption. I mean, why would anyone take loan for? Either to buy a motorcycle, to buy something. It will boost consumption. Again, boosting consumption is creating demand. More demand, more production, and more production is more growth. Well, it is also possible that someone is taking this money for investment purposes. So it will also increase investment. Ultimately, more investment is also going to be towards more production and more growth. So more saving by the people is invariably linked towards faster economic growth. Next aspect, suppose First was saving, second was that you are getting credit. What's the benefit of taking credit? Well, after taking credit, either again you will do consumption. If you are doing consumption, the standard of living is going, a standard of living will improve. So those poor people, like see, when we are talking of more financial inclusion, rich people are already included financially. So we are talking towards those people only who are at the bottom of the pyramid. So if the more, like those people who were at the bottom of the pyramid, who were till now not able to access affordable credit, now they are accessing the credit, their consumption will increase. More consumption is going to improve their standard of living. They can also take the loan for starting some kind of self-employment, entrepreneurship, like Mudra loan. If we are doing, it will increase entrepreneurship. Again, it will increase their income. More increase in their income. This this credit is not only credit, this is affordable credit. So since this is affordable credit, it will help them in avoiding debt trap. Loan, you not only take, like sometimes you also take personal loan, or when like there is any health emergency, family emergency, when there is family function. So in that kind of loan also will help you avoid debt trap. When you take loan at a very high interest rate, you are not able to repay that. But loan at say 9% or 10% interest rate, you may be able to repay to the bank. So when you avoid debt trap, you avoid people from slipping back to poverty, avoid slippage effect, or avoid slippage to poverty. Like health emergencies are one of the largest reasons because of which those who just come out of poverty slip back to the poverty. That would be avoided. And well, this phenomena is more vividly visible through the insurance products. Insurance products provide the financial security. When there is a death of say head of the family or the breadwinner of the family, invariably the family slips back to the poverty because there is no earner. The person who was earning is no more. In that case, the insurance is very much helpful. It helps them in financial security. So there are various benefits not only for the family who is getting financially included, but also for the family, for the economy in general. It is a very much beneficial thing that there should be financial inclusion. So the government is not fool that it is focusing so much on financial inclusion, on the rupee payment and all these things, because it is invariably leading to economic development and help to the families. There is data as well. There is a World Bank survey which says that 10% increase, this is something which is said by World Bank, 10% increase in financial inclusion leads to 1.5% increment, 1.5% increment in GDP growth rate. So this is the research done by World Bank, which is saying that 10% increase in financial inclusion will lead to 1.5% increase in GDP growth rate. In fact, the microcredit is also like through SHGs. Microcredit is something that is provided to SHGs nowadays. It is a very effective tool for poverty alleviation. And if there is going to be poverty alleviation, there is definitely reduced inequality, and reduced inequality is leading to inclusive growth. So as I have told you earlier, rather than merely writing the point that it will lead to inclusive growth, you should write these linkages. then your answers in economy is going to look different from the answers of other students. And you should start those linkages from the basic things as well. These are the basic things. First, you should write a structure format that these are the bases. Okay, and from these bases only various things are linked. Okay, so today I'm going to stop here only. From tomorrow's class, we shall again meet on the next topic of economy. We are going to cover one after another all the topics of economy. So do spread the word. If you have liked this session, do like this video and share it with all your friends who are preparing for it. These data, example, etc., you will be able to memorize if you discuss it with your friends. So see you again tomorrow, 2 p.m. on our YouTube channel. Have a nice day.